It's Miss Heather, the music director here at Conservatory of the Ozarks, and I'm just here with another update about how everything is going here. I'm feeling really angry and frustrated today by some bad news that we've got yesterday and today, and I'm going to put it out there and share it with everybody, and I apologize if I sound angry or if I start crying or something. I can't seem to get through the day without crying this week. But first off, I have a lot to be thankful for, so I feel bad to complain about anything. I know people right now are losing their homes, losing their jobs, and losing their lives even because of COVID. And everyone I love is still healthy and safe, and my students are willing to stick with me, so I'm not losing my job. So I have a lot to be thankful for, and I don't mean to just be whining, but it makes me feel better to share with all of you who care to know about the details of what's happening right now. So I'm just going to kind of go into detail about everything a little bit more than I have with our bad situation here at the conservatory right now. So we started out this year great, 2020. We had a new business director who started last year, who was great. I was kind of enjoying my life more because she'd taken a lot of the administrative work off my plate. I was feeling happy. We had a full studio, but not too full. There was plenty of space for everybody, and it just seemed like everything was going so well. I had really high hopes for this year, and financially things were going well. It was great. And then the shutdown happened, and suddenly we lost so many students, nearly half of our students, when we weren't allowed to teach here anymore. A lot of people didn't want to go online for their lessons, or they lost their jobs, or their parents lost their jobs if they were kids and they were afraid they couldn't afford it anymore. And then for the first time ever, we went all these months with nobody really signing up. We went at least one whole month with not a single call from somebody wanting to sign up, which I've never ever seen before, the whole time I've been doing this, which I started doing this in 2006, so 14 years. So then summer hit. Normally we lose some students in the summer, it's kind of normal. And normally when school starts, we have a big rush of new students. So when summer hit, we actually didn't lose as many people as normal because everybody's already gone. We just lost a few more for the summer. And I thought to myself, if we can get through the summer, we will be okay, because back to school rush and everything, the shutdown is over, things will kind of go back to normal, and we'll be fine if we can just get through this summer. So we applied for, I forget the names of the loans, EIDL and PPP, and we got some funding from those. We're not a big, successful gajillionaire kind of business though, so we didn't get a lot of money from that, but we got, a few $1,000s, and that was enough to get us through. And then towards the end of the summer, it was getting, harder and harder, because when you go for a month and things are tight, you can get through it. But when it's a lot of months, things start to get harder and pile up. And I'm sure any of you out there who are grown-ups with money and bills to pay, what I mean, and you can identify with that. But we went through our savings, and we went through the loans that we got from the government, and we were so grateful for that government help. But we went through it, and I feel like we were trying to be really careful. I feel like we were trying not to spend extra money on things, just the bare minimum so we could survive this. And then I'll just kind of explain how the conservatory works. So everybody who works here is an independent contractor, and we all pay a fee for each student for each month. So like one month, if I have 6 students, I pay less than a month when I have 10 students, because that's what the rent is based on. It's based on how many students you teach. I designed it that way because I hoped to make it flexible, so like if teachers had a bad month, they didn't still have the same high rent to pay, and then, you know, you can't make it. I wanted teachers to be able to work here and make a good income and be able to do this if this is what they wanted. If they wanted to be able to teach music lessons for their career, that they could do this and make a good living and stay here for their whole career and not have to do like 3 other part-time jobs. So I tried to take as small of a cut as I could from the teachers and still be able to keep this place open. Now, as a result, and I'm not saying that was a good idea, because a lot of people felt like I should have taken a bigger cut, and maybe I should have, because then maybe we would have had more money to get through this. But I didn't want to be a place where we had teachers and they would be here for a year and then they leave. They'd be here for 2 years and then they leave. I wanted teachers who were really good teachers to be attracted here, who are passionate about teaching the arts and would want to do this for their whole career. And I feel like we succeeded in that, because people usually stay for a long time when they start teaching here, which I loved. I loved that. But anyways, so as our studio fees dropped, it got harder and harder and harder to pay all of our bills. So I have to pay studio fees just like all of the other teachers. We've never gotten to a point where we were so big and successful that I didn't have to pay studio fees anymore, just being honest. And I'm fine with that. I kind of had to choose, would I rather have an assistant and still pay my studio fees, or would I rather do the work myself and keep the money? And I would rather have the help. So that's what we did. And sometimes, you have students who are on auto pay through the conservatory. So say you have $100 you owe in studio fees, but you have 200 people on auto pay, $200 worth of people on auto pay, then you get what's called studio fee refund. And that's just what's ever left over after your studio fees are paid out of your auto pay tuition from your students. So the last few months, it's gotten so bad that I couldn't even take my studio fee refund either. So I don't know, like 3/4 of my income was going to keeping this place afloat, because I feel like such pressure. If I close this place, all these teachers lose their jobs, and all these students can't come here for lessons anymore. And just like, when you're in charge and you're the leader, you have to sometimes do hard things like that to keep the dream going, And it was worth it to me. But I can't do that like indefinitely. It's too bad. I'm not like, a person with just like piles of money sitting around that I could just use to keep paying for things. And so, in August, I finally was like going over the numbers in the middle of the month, and I thought if we could get here, we'll be okay, because we'll have the back to school rush and everything will be fine. But we weren't getting the back to school rush for the first time ever. I've never seen it before. We weren't getting new students signing up when school started. So I was like, this has been 6 months of this since the shutdown happened back in March, the middle of March. And now I just don't feel like I know when it's going to end. So I don't know, like either we're going to have a miracle or we're going to have to close. And so I contacted our landlord, and we're under a 5-year lease. The 5-year lease ends in December, and it's now the end of September, and I think it's the 23rd today. So I said, I don't know what we're going to do. I really hate to email you this. I've never defaulted on a lease contract before, but I don't think we're going to be able to stay in business much longer unless like there's some miracle, because I don't know how we're going to pay our rent. And I was like, I think we might have to move out at the end of August. I don't know how we're going to pay September's rent. And I don't actually know who our landlord is here at Kickapoo Corners. I just talked with the leasing agent. And so she got back to me and said, well, the landlord wants you to see if you can get some government funding, and they'll reserve the time to make the final decision about whether to release you from your lease early or not until after we find out if you can get some money from this. And I'm like, well, I already did the PPE and the EIDL or whatever it was called. And she's like, well, CARES Act. And I hadn't really heard about the CARES Act. So I was like, okay, thanks. I will try that. That sounds wonderful. So August 20th, I put in an application for the CARES Act. And I think that was before I even told anybody that I was thinking we had to close, And I got a confirmation email that they had received my application. And then I never heard anything else back. I went to their website and tried to find a way to get a status update. I kept checking my inbox to see if they'd emailed me, and I missed it. And when I tried to send messages from their website, I just got error messages back, and there was no email or phone number listed that I could find anyway that you could use to contact them directly to find out hey, are you looking at my application? Are you going to do this or not going to do this? It seemed very unclear to me. Some of the things I was reading seemed to indicate that the deadline is closed, and some others seem to say it was open, and some things seem to say, well, if you're one of these high priority businesses, then you'll be kind of at the top of the list. And of course, we're not one of those businesses. We're not in healthcare or, groceries or something that's essential for people to stay alive. We're the arts. So anyways, I kept telling my landlord, I haven't heard anything back from them. I don't know, are you going to release me from the lease? Because the clock is ticking. I don't know how we can get past this month. And now it's, a week from the end of the month, and I still hadn't heard anything back from the CARES Act. And we set up a GoFundMe, which I have just been amazed to see people donating to that. It's such a blessing. It really warms my heart to see that. And I'm so grateful for that. But, it's not enough money to keep us going for an indefinite amount of time. So anyways, that's where things were. And then last Wednesday, 1 week ago today, Color 10 wanted to come do an interview with us because they were doing a report about how COVID is affecting arts in Springfield. So they interviewed us and somebody from the Galois about how COVID was affecting us. Now, that interview lasted, probably 20 minutes or more. But, if you've ever been interviewed before, the reporter can't include every single thing you say in the report. There's limited time or limited space on the page for them to include what you're talking about. And it wasn't like the report was even just about us and our struggle. It was about fine arts in Springfield and how the whole community is being affected by COVID. So what I said from the interview, maybe a few seconds of it was included in what aired that evening, which is totally fine with me. I was really grateful that they thought of us. I was happy that we were included. And I don't mean this as an accusation at all, because I don't know if they have certain rules they have to follow or if it wasn't part of, the story. But I did mention, I thought, that we had set up a GoFundMe. We were hoping for a miracle. We'd applied for the CARES Act. I think I had mentioned some of that, if something amazing happens, maybe we could stay open. But as of now, we've had no word. We've been waiting and waiting, and there's no help in sight, and I don't know what else we can do. So we have to plan to close. We can't just sit here and wait and see what happens. Moving out of a business like this is a big undertaking. So I'm moving forward as if we're closing, because I don't know that we have any hope of doing otherwise. So my landlord yesterday emailed me back and finally gave me a decisive answer that they are not going to let us out of the last 3 months of our 5-year lease. And part of me does feel really frustrated about that, because it's 5 years, we've paid a lot of rent to you. And this is an unprecedented situation. we're not the only ones who are wanting to move out early. Like, they told me that. And part of me understands where they're coming from. I signed a contract saying we would pay rent for 5 years, and it's not their fault that the pandemic is happening and that people don't want to do music lessons right now. So they have every right to demand that we pay it. And honestly, our landlord has been really great. Like, earlier this summer, when we were at our lowest point, like, they gave us rent relief. And I mean, like, I've never heard of a commercial landlord doing something like that before. That was so kind and generous of them. And that helped us get through the summer. You know, I really, really appreciated that. But I mean, it is frustrating to hear, like, oh, sorry, you're going out of business because there's no help for you and you can't make it anymore, but you still are going to have to pay rent even if you move out of here early. You still have to pay rent anyway. Too bad for you. And so I heard that yesterday. And then today, you know, I heard back from somebody else I'd emailed because my landlord had randomly said, well, if you haven't heard back from the CARES Act yet, this is the guy who's in charge of it, and here's his email address. And I don't know how she found all of that out, but that's not, you know, the protocol for finding out your status for your application for the CARES Act. I followed the protocol and I heard nothing. So just randomly, she happened to say, why don't you just email this guy and see if he can tell you anything? So I was like, okay. So I sent an email, and he told me that the wait was really long, and we were like next in line to have our application go before the committee, and then they saw the news report, and the news report just said we were closing. And because of that, they decided we were ineligible to have our application reviewed, and they just took us out of the running. They didn't contact me to confirm that the news report was correct. They didn't like look at our page and notice, oh, they are trying to raise funds with GoFundMe and, you know, trying to find a way to keep going if possible. And they didn't even contact me to tell me that they had decided, I guess a week ago when they saw the news report, to just take us out of the running. The only reason I know about it is because, like I say, just randomly, my landlord gave me the email address of the guy who would be able to let me know what was going on. And so I emailed him back and I said, like, I mentioned in the news report that we were trying to raise funds. But of course they didn't have time to include everything. And I can't believe that you guys would just take us out of the running like that after we waited for a month. I feel like we're being punished because the committee is moving so slow. Like, it's supposed to be emergency funds. We need it now, not like weeks and weeks and weeks later, and you don't even tell us that you're considering it or that we're next in line or something like that. All we know is there's no help, and there's still no help, and there's still no help. And so I guess we have to like move forward like we're going to close because we have to figure something out. And now you're punishing us because you didn't communicate with us and you didn't move fast enough. And I feel bad because that seems really harsh. I think the people on the committee are volunteers, and I'm sure they're doing like the very best they can. I'm sure they are just inundated with a massive amount of applications, and everybody's hurting right now, and a lot of people have it way worse than we do. But that just seemed really frustrating to me that they would just base that on this little snippet of a news report. They would just decide, you guys don't get to be considered. It seems really like an inappropriate way to make that decision from my perspective. So anyways, I don't know what we're going to do. Like, honestly, if we have to pay rent on this place for the next 3 months, no matter what happens, if we could get funding to help us pay for that and like get through the next 3 months, who knows? Like, maybe things will be back to normal later in the winter and then we would be okay. Maybe not. Like, maybe it would just be a waste of government funds and we get through the next few months and still like there's no change. I just don't have any way of knowing. Sadly. So anyways, that's my update on how things are going right now. Not good is how they're going. I have like a splitting headache from the stress and pressure of all of this, and it was really sad because they came and moved out 2 of the pianos today that we sold, which I'm really thankful that we sold them, because that will help us, you know, the money will help us. But I'll just show you guys. That's my little keyboard that I talked about in my video yesterday from when I was a kid from Sam's Club that I still have. And that's all Mr. Ben will have to teach on today. I'm so sad about that. But, and then in here in Miss Alyssa's room, Steve, who's a student here, is letting us borrow his nice keyboard. It's actually got 88 keys. It's way nicer than the one I had. So the rooms look so empty without the pianos. I'm really happy they're going to a good place, where they will be loved and used to make music, but it just broke my heart to see them go out the door. So anyway, that's how things are going right now. So we got a few more donations to the GoFundMe this week, and I am so grateful for that. Thank you so much to everybody who's given money to that. That's going to make such a big difference for us, especially like coming up with the rent money for the next 3 months somehow. I mean, I guess I can always not pay it, but then I have to risk them either suing me or putting on my credit that I defaulted on my contract, and neither one of those sound very nice. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye because I've got to start teaching here in a little bit. But everybody stay safe and healthy, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.